The Halo series is one of my favorite Xbox titles, from Master Chief, Captain Keyes, the Arbiter, Sergeant Johnson, and beyond. Many of these characters players have fond memories of. I initially got into Halo from my dad, who is a super big fan. First, Halo Wars was my first game in the series, then eventually Reach. These have remained my favorite Halo games. While that may not be the most popular choice, it just has so many awesome memories. Invasion, big team battle, cops and robbers, Fat Boy, and beyond is something that I'll always enjoy looking back on. Years later, I want to return to these games and challenge myself. Previously, I went through Halo Wars 1 and 2 with infantry only, which was really chaotic. This time around, we will be asking a different question. Can you beat Halo Wars 2 with vehicles only? This is going to be interesting to say the least. Before we dive into the video, I should first lay out the rules, skulls, and the basics to Halo Wars mechanics. I'm only able to use vehicles. This means car/tank-based units such as Warthogs, Scorpions, and so on. Branching off of that is if I'm given non-vehicle units at the start or throughout the level, I must sacrifice them. Upgrades and player powers are allowed. I'll talk about these more throughout the run, but want to briefly mention them here. Next, the game's difficulty will be on Legendary, meaning the hardest difficulty. Subsequently, I'm allowed to use skulls. These are modifiers to the campaign that allow the player access to bonuses or hindrances. Out of all the Halo Wars videos, the skull combination is going to be the toughest. I'll list them out on screen now. Those last few are going to make things very entertaining. Pestilence and Nightmare are going to be the hardest to deal with, but hopefully we can manage. Afterwards, I must beat the game. There are numerous missions, so we have to conquer them all. There are also 2 DLCs that I will need to complete. Lastly, glitches and or exploits are allowed to expect me to take full advantage of my arsenal. I'm very excited to be sharing this challenge run with everyone. If you haven't seen the previous Halo Wars challenges, I'll link them in the description below. Make sure to hit the bell icon to be notified when I post similar challenges. Smash the like button, comment, and subscribe. Now, let's get into the basics of Halo Wars. In this initial section, I'll talk about the game for those who are unfamiliar to the series and or need a refresher. I'll put the time code on screen for those who just want to jump straight ahead into the challenge. Halo Wars is a real-time strategy game that relies on the player's resourcefulness and troop management. From carefully selecting troops to upgrading optimal bonuses, each needs to be managed. There are exceptions to most rules, but generally in Halo Wars, a diverse group of units is superior to a single type of unit. Why is that? These games are a much more complex version of rock, paper, and scissors. These stats are reflected when training units. That is one of the many reasons why an infantry, vehicles, or air units only runs are challenging, since enemies can easily counter them with the optimal unit. The player is able to build, train troops, and upgrade from a base. Resources such as power and supplies need to be collected, and at the same time garages for vehicles and armories for upgrades. Each mission presents a different objective to the player. Some of these missions may have optional objectives such as power nodes, saving UNSC allies, retaking bases, and so on. The player is able to use certain abilities during each mission. This could be healing allies, dropping vehicles on the fly, or decrease the time units and upgrades take. These are just some of the many basics that I want to share. Expect me to further talk about mechanics and such throughout the run. Now let's dive into our first mission. Spirit of Fire's crew awakens after a long time has passed since the events of Halo Wars 1's campaign. Serena, the AI, talks as this is all going on. Because it's been such a long time, she had to deactivate herself since AIs can't be quote-unquote alive for too long. Captain Cutter and Professor Anders speak about the current situation. All of a sudden, when they are talking, a UNSC distress signal is detected, so the captain rushes to get some answers. Thankfully, the first mission has a start in a Warthog, one of the most basic UNSC vehicle options, but she is good old reliable. As we go through this first mission, I should talk about the obvious actor switches for some of the characters. Anders and Cutter, when I first played this game years and years ago, did take me out of the immersion seeing the different actors. Gideon Emery has been in numerous games, some of which I never even realized. Those Infinity Blade games were amazing on the iOS back in the day. Ever since Advanced Warfare, whenever I see him, it just makes me think of that game. Both give a good performance for the material they were given, though I really just wish they brought back the original voice actors. With the Banished revealing themselves and the Covenant no longer the immediate threat, Captain Cutter decides what to do next. Alongside hearing the recollection of Isabel, an AI the Spartans found from the distress call. Cutscenes in the Halo Wars games are insanely well made. Every time I just have to sit back and watch. Atriox's reveal, Captain Cutter's speech, and the Flood storming out of High Charity are just peak. I really hope that Halo Wars 3 is on the planning floor or in development because man, a brother has been starving for more. Subsequently, we are tasked with clearing banished camps. And unfortunately, we do start with infantry, but part of the mission are only able to use them. Similar to the infantry in the first vehicles only run, certain missions will force the player to use specific units. This is one mission where vehicles only is not possible, as just mentioned. Let's start to track the number of missions where this cannot be achieved. It will be interesting to compare this to the first game's challenge. We'll continue as I am curious to see how the other missions fare, alongside how many we are not able to finish. Later in the same mission, I was able to build a base and train vehicles, but since infantry was given at the beginning, we are going to have to count this. It did give me the opportunity to get back into the game, as it has been a bit. There were numerous power nodes to collect around the map, alongside capturing a second base. Eventually though, I took the fight to the heart of the banished operation. Decimus decided to come out and play, which led to a fun yet hectic fight. Ultimately, we were the victors. Ascension has the player finding and getting to the cartographer, as Atriox is desperately guarding whatever it is. This time around, we spawn in with 3 Warthogs and some Cyclops. Since we did spawn in with some vehicles, I immediately sent the Cyclops to their demise, once Jerome hijacked a Wraith. I don't think they'll be too happy with me on that one. While using Spartans to attack enemies directly is against the rules, having them hijack vehicles is okay. It was something I did in the previous challenge run. By now, I think it is starting to become evident how these skulls are going to be fun, yet hindering throughout the run. Basically a challenge run on top of a challenge run. One downside to UNSC vehicles that they do not have any shields, and with our health slowly depleting, it just means a harder time for us. Thankfully, Wraiths and some other banished vehicles will have shields, gives my units a bit more time to survive or take them down. Especially as certain missions, you start with Spartans and you literally just can't get rid of them. Might as well just have them jack a Wraith and just send them into a corner or something. Sooner or later we are able to build a base and now have to capture control towers around the map. The more one side has, the faster they will receive points. I opted to go with capturing 2 towers to hold the majority, and to leave the last one open. It's much easier to defend 2 locations than spread out my armies for 3. One of the things that makes sense, but is just frustrating for a replay through, is that units will slowly be unlocked throughout the campaign. Because of this, we only have Warthogs. Scorpions, Wolverines, and Kodiaks are just not available to train. While Wolverines and Kodiaks are a bit more niche and situational, it would have been great to have. Regardless, Warthogs will do the job. They are cheap, don't take up many slots within the player's army, and deal decent damage to all enemy types. When you are selecting troops to train, 4 icons will appear. How that unit fares against infantry, vehicles, air, and super units. Red is horrible, yellow is okay, and green is great. Some will be gray or blank, which means that it cannot target that enemy type. There are a lot of gameplay things that I will talk about throughout the run. This is just one of the many examples that can help you during your playthroughs. As this is a rock, paper, and scissors game, being mindful of that chart helps a lot. Mission ends when we have beaten the banished, securing more points than them, and are now able to find out more about the cartographer. Because Alice got separated during the first mission, he now has to work alone to help stranded UNSC forces return to the Spirit of Fire. This also meant a non-vehicle only mission, so we are going to have to count this against the run. As such, I'll be skipping most of this mission. One thing that you shouldn't skip is heading over to the VOD channel. Here I post streams and highlights from the challenges I complete. Or maybe you would enjoy watching live. I stream regularly on Twitch and have recently finished some cool challenges that I'm excited to share. I've been grateful for the support over the years on both channels and will continue to provide fun and entertaining challenges. Thank you guys for being awesome. Now let's get back into it. Out of all the missions we've been through thus far, the cartographer was easily the hardest. Let me explain. At the beginning, things are simple and there's nothing to really worry about. I sent the infantry and non-vehicles to their demise, then started to build up the base. This mission introduces a new vehicle that we are able to train. Wolverines. These are excellent at dealing with air units, but are terrible for every other unit type. Because of that, I was hesitant to have a lot of them in my army. A few points of interest are around the map. Once the enemies around are defeated, alongside dropping an EMP, the player can enter the next area, rinse and repeat till the end. The difficulty jumps massively after the second sequence. The banished base is there with limitless resources and troops. Then there is the shield. Banished units are able to cloak and shield their base, which just makes it that much harder harder. With only Warthogs and Wolverines, this proved extremely arduous. I would not wish this section on my worst enemy. I cannot stress enough how challenging this was. Vehicles only, the skulls, legendary difficulty, and so on were just fighting me on every front. I was able to destroy the base and press onwards. It was a lengthy battle to say the least. I would highly recommend you checking out the full mission to just see how brutal this was. Once all the EMPs are in place, we are now able to go towards the control tower. Some Forerunner enemies need to be dealt with, particularly the Sentinels, but eventually we are able to find out why the Cartographer is so important to Atriox and the Banished Army. It acts as a teleporter connecting everything on the arc. That is why it seems like Atriox is everywhere. As the next mission is playing, I'd like to talk about the run so far, plans for late game and DLCs, then some future Halo Wars challenges. Halo Wars 2 vehicles only has been interesting so far. Vehicles are solid choices to use in any playthrough, but when limited to only them, it has some downsides. The biggest being when we come in contact with hunters or other enemies that counter vehicles hard. Pestilence and Nightmare Skulls have been very challenging to overcome. Units constantly losing health means that I have to use them almost immediately to get the most out of them. Last mission, I ended up having to finish that one in the next stream. I started it in the part 1 video, but didn't actually complete it until the part 2 stream. As such, I did have to restart from the beginning. If I didn't have that skull on, I could just load into the last checkpoint. While those skulls are hindering, it slightly helps to boost my morale when grunts pop open with confetti. I'll never tire of grunt birthday party. It's unfortunate that some missions have forced us to start with non-vehicles, but like most games, the player's on the rails for certain sections. If Halo Wars 3 ever happens, it would be cool to choose what units you start with at the beginning. Maybe something based off of like the pick 10 system. Spartans like cost 3, Scorpions cost 5, and so on. It would also just be baller to play as the Flood. Ever since I was a young lad playing the original game, I've just always wanted this. But I digress. Still have plenty of the game to go, that's not even mentioning the DLCs. I'm really interested to see what will happen going forward. Will most missions turn out to be doable with vehicles only, or will it be like last week's Black Ops 1 challenge, where over 80% of the time I was forced to use non-pistols? Well, time will tell. Going forward, I think the key to success will be the Scorpions. Their increased health, defense, and damage will be great for enemies going forward. The downside is that they are very slow and costly, but I think they are the superior choice over Warthogs. Now, this isn't to say Warthogs are bad. They will be the primary choice if I decide to rush or have a time limit for missions. The second DLC has us play as the Banished. Because of that, I'm curious to see how those vehicles will fare. Will the Wraith be the superior choice? Is the Flood going to be a problem? Yes, and unfortunately yes. But I don't want to spoil the fun. One thing that I really enjoy about doing challenge runs is that there are limitless possibilities. Lasso runs, no unit dying, and 100% achievement playthrough are just some of the many options. I've been deciding on what I want to do next. I think for the next few weeks I'm going to focus on editing for some big projects I want to put out, and afterwards I want to do some more Halo Wars challenges. Let me know if you have any ideas in the comments below. I'd be really interested to see. At the end of the challenge, when all is said and done, we will reconvene and I'll give my final thoughts, including the run. This mission ends with us defeating Decimus once and for all. With one of Atriox's right-hand men defeated, this will surely put the pressure on them. The boys rolled out in style on that one. From the Deep is one mission that I dread yet get excited about. What do you mean by that? It's just one of those missions where it's so tough, which makes it fun and memorable. I think the infantry only run solidified it within memory. Initially, we have to defend the main beach from a banished onslaught. Numerous waves will spawn in, with them getting increasingly more challenging. This is when we encounter Locust for the first time. Long-range vehicle able to destroy vehicles and buildings with ease. Some mini-bases can be captured near the main base. These are also areas where enemies will come in from. Early on in the mission was the hardest to overcome because of the lack of resources, upgrades, and units. Felt like every 10 seconds another wave was going straight for the base. Main purpose of this mission is to defend the last portal controller against banished forces. Strangely, they don't actually target the portal controller. They probably do eventually, but they always went for the main base first. Because of this, I didn't have to worry as much about failing the mission, as long as I could maintain my base. This was easier said than done though. I mentioned the Pestilence and Nightmare Skulls be quite hindering in this run. Slowly losing health and not having save/checkpoints has made things brutal. One that I've yet to go more in depth on is the Sickness Skull, which reduces the health of all Unity units. Combine that with Pestilence and yeah, my troops have the health of a wet paper towel. In the end, we complete the mission once the Scarab is defeated. It was fun but arduous. this. Hold the Line is my favorite mission in the base campaign of Halo Wars 2. Whether it's the tower defense style mechanics, the freedom the player is given with their units, this is one awesome mission. The player has a holdout while Anders works on firing at the enemy supercarrier. 30 minutes is a fair amount of time, but with just how fun this mission goes, it flies right by. I opted to build up the base and turrets before investing into vehicle training and upgrades. There are more than a few ways that the Banished can attack Anders, so I'll have to ensure each is heavily fortified. Warthogs are going to be the main unit trained. Their low resource costs, quick training times, and decent damage against all enemy types will help us a lot. Downside is that compared to Scorpions and Kodiaks, their health dips down a lot further because of the Pestilent Skull. Banished player powers have proven to be troublesome throughout the run, since my units are at such a low health. These powers pretty much take them all down. This definitely caused some issues during the mission. This next section I've written then rewritten a few times. I've wanted to address this for a while. On this channel I've covered numerous challenge runs, and I've been thankful to receive all the support and recognition. You guys have been awesome. Obviously, with any forum on the internet, there are going to be people that click on something for 10 seconds, act like they know the whole video, rage bait, or just have some really whack takes. Recently, I've noticed some comments that did one or more of these things. Initially, I was going to draw some attention to those comments, but I think that's excessive. Most people would understand the type of comment just by listening. In my videos, I leave some things unmentioned, showcasing them in the background, or will briefly mention it with some added context later. I know most people don't need to be spoon-fed this information. I think the last KOTOR video had some great examples regarding the aforementioned points. Whenever I see these comments, I just can't help but laugh. This is going to be the one and only time I talk about this, as it is important. Now, that's not even mentioning the extreme comments. Most likely, I'll remove these malicious comments. I'm all for having differing opinions, and so that is why I still really enjoy engaging with you guys. Man, some people need to check their energy because they just put it into random, useless arguments. Lastly, I plan to write and review the Halo Wars series. These are some really fun games in my opinion, and I've wanted to tackle these in depth, the behind the scenes development, and so on. Halo Wars and the KOTOR series seem to be popular choices on the channel. Because of this, I figured most people would enjoy it, as it's been some time since the last review. I've seen some takes on YouTube regarding this game, one being from a big Halo content creator, basically just poops all over this series. Since I saw that video years ago, I've wanted to do this series some justice. Subsequently, UNSC forces gather in order to infiltrate a banished compound to board the carrier enduring conviction. This is a two-parter type of mission. The first section uses half the map, and the second, well, I think you can guess. Fortunately, this mission starts with infantry. Because of this, we are going to have to add a tally in the corner. For half of the mission, I was able to use vehicles only, but we still have to count it against the run. It's disappointing to get missions where vehicles only cannot be achieved, but at least at the end, I got that banger cutscene with the brute fight and the Sentinels just destroying the carrier. These cutscenes are just straight peak. Foundry was one mission that, looking back on the run, was up there in the top 5 regarding difficulty. If not, this is like probably the hardest mission in the whole run. This mission took multiple attempts to complete. First and foremost is that we start with infantry, so we are going to have to count this against the run. Even so, I did continue the missions with vehicles only, as I want to follow the rules as much as possible. The player has to commandeer and maintain a scarab throughout the mission. What? That sounds like it would be the easier type of missions. What's that tricky pestilent skull that withers its health down? Since the scarab is tied to mission success, if it falls in battle, that means an instant L. That is just one aspect. Multiple banished bases are around the map. That's not even mentioning mini bases, of which there were a handful in total in addition to the main bases. Felt like the banished had 2 to 3 times the troop cap, and they were just always hungry for blood. Time limit really forced my hand throughout the mission. I was able to somewhat circumvent this by not building a base immediately, just gather resources from the power node. It's far from ideal, but it will give me a better start than nothing. The final area was the toughest. Souped up banished base, numerous enemy types waiting, and leader powers absolutely messed me up more times than I care to admit. Mentioned more than a few times that Halo Wars is a rock paper scissors game, and why having multiple unit types is extremely advantageous. This is a perfect example, at least for the campaign. I played and seen my fair share of multiplayer, where the meta is usually just rushing with one type before the enemy can build. Wraiths and Hunters counter vehicles hard. Fortunately, since there are just so many base locations, I'm easily able to replace the lost vehicles over and over again. Even though it was challenging, it was really fun. It pushed me as a player, forcing me to overcome this obstacle. I cannot stress how many times I restarted this mission. I highly encourage you to try this and other challenges that interest you that I've covered on the channel. Fun way to become a better player alongside learning new things along the way. In the end, after a brutal sequence of streams, I finally finished the mission. I was literally jumping out of my chair for that one. Because we had crippled the banished supercarrier alongside reaching the Halo's control room, UNSC forces must push back the enemy. Similar to the third mission, we have to hold a majority of the control towers to get more points with them. A lot easier said than done, especially when they kept sending brute warlords. The biggest difference to the third mission is the retriever sentinel that roams around the arena, protecting the control points. As this is basically identical, let's move on. Once again, if you are interested in this mission or any of the others in this playthrough, head over to the VODs channel to see all of it and more. Last Stand has UNSC forces hold out against the Banish long enough for Anders to complete her mission. This is the final mission of the main campaign, so we have full access to the Spirit of Fire's arsenal. Biggest downside is that no bases can be built. Straight away, it's apparent that this mission is not able to be completed with vehicles only. Numerous ODSTs, snipers, and so on were given throughout the mission. I think this is a good point to talk about the run before we segue into the DLCs. Base game is 12 missions, which is about 2/3 of all the missions in the game. As such, it is a good indicator of what we are going to see in the rest of the run. Though the Flood mission definitely switch things up, so stay tuned for that as it was crazy. Vehicles only have been interesting so far. Similar to infantry, it's cool to see where each unit type shines and crumbles. Vehicles prove to be more costly than infantry, both training and researching upgrades. The trade-off is that we are able to deal much higher damage and have more health. This goes into the next point, which is that we don't have health. That last point just means we have more damage. The pestilence and sickness skulls were the culprits. Legendary difficulty by itself is no joke. Then add all the skulls, and then vehicles only. So far it's taken over 17 hours to get to this point, mainly from that one mission, as man that was difficult. We still have plenty of the game to go with the DLCs, so things could switch just like that. There have been some missions that vehicles only could not be achieved, but for a majority I was able to use just vehicles. At the end, the player has to hold off as 3 scarabs charge the control room. With nearly 2 minutes remaining, groups had to endure the devastating plasma beams. Thankfully the leader powers recharge extremely quickly in this mission, top of that skull that reduces the recharge time. I was then able to spam them often. In the end, Anders is able to stop the Banish by flinging them into space. The Halo gets teleported with her still on board, but Captain Cutter knows that there is still much to do, which then pans to the opposite perspective with Atriox. Man, that transition goes so hard. Super underrated. Now let's transition over to the DLCs. If you haven't already, make sure to hit the like button, comment, and subscribe to help support me and the channel. Do everything on here myself, so that's why it takes time for me to write the scripts, edit, etc. There are 2 major DLCs for Halo Wars 2, Operation Spearbreaker and Awakening the Nightmare. Other DLCs were released, but were for the multiplayer and PvE game modes, such as old and new characters. There are 2 missions for Operation Spearbreaker and 5 for the Flood DLC. The first DLC is the shortest, but has some really awesome and fun missions. This campaign focuses on a group of ODSTs that act as the hero unit. But I did not count the Spartans in the base campaign, as they could hijack and commandeer vehicles. ODSTs can, so I will be counting these 2 missions against the run. While that was unfortunate, the ODSTs were able to produce mech-like vehicles that dealt insanely high damage. Because the Hunter Chieftain plans to blow up the Spirit of Fire with the Forerunner ship, the ODST group rushes into action. Numerous mechs had to be built to delay the time till the ship launch, and if done correctly, will allow the player to fight the Hunter Chieftain. This was a really awesome sequence. In the end, the ODSTs are thanked for saving the day. The second and final DLC I plan to spend more time on because yeah, the Flood is just badass and scary as hell. After seeing the 2 main characters that we will be playing in the DLC, Boreas and Pavium, the 2 join forces to assault High Charity, relic of the Covenant era. Besides the Flood, it's refreshing to switch to the Banished and play as them for a bit. New vehicles, upgrades, player powers, turret types, etc. The player has to build up their base, launch EMPs to delay Forerunner reinforcements, stop UNSC forces ahead, and guide a Scarab to High Charity. The first mission was able to be completed with vehicles only, as I sacrificed my non-vehicle units at the start, then proceeded to train just Reavers Reavers, Marauders, and so on. Reavers to counter their air units, and Marauders to deal with the turrets. Another downside to this mission is that the Scarab is affected by the skulls, even though I have zero control over it. This meant I had to be vigilant at all times, as a misstep would mean restarting the mission completely. I have to just show this next part.
I'll use this thing to deactivate the Sentinel defenses once and for all.
Oh, no, no.
Yeah, that bozo just whacked the Scarab mid-cutscene, so there was literally nothing I could do. Because of that, I had to restart going through all of it again. Well, I ultra prepared for this time around, as I did not want to see myself failing again. Ultimately, I was able to get past and witness the greatest cutscene in all of Halo Wars 2. I'll let some of it play out now. Because the Flood has been released, Boreas and Pavium try to contain the infection as much as possible. The second and third mission proved to be the hardest in this DLC, and both of these infantry units were given on top of the heroes. As such, both of these will be counted against the run, as if the hero unit is defeated, the mission ends. Usually I would send them to their doom, but as he is tied to mission success, we have to count these. The first has us defend against waves of enemies as we continually get pushed back, while the second had us restart drills to destroy the Flood with toxic fumes from the planet below. This is a good point to talk about the elephant in the room, which is that the Flood can infect vehicles. Wait, what? That wasn't the case in Halo Wars 1. Yeah, there have been some changes to the way the Flood behaves. In the infantry only video, I questioned this as being strange. At the time, I felt it was weird that the Flood could infect them, but after thinking about it and seeing your guys' comments, I have changed my mind on it. It does make sense since they are infecting the people riding the vehicle, then spreading their biomass across it. I still think it's a bit absurd how fast the biomass spreads, but it is a fictional alien parasite, so it's got a lot of wiggle room. Halo 3, when Master Chief and the Arbiter explore the Covenant ship to rescue Cortana, is riddled with flood biomass. Because of this, it makes a lot of sense gameplay-wise why they would update this in Halo Wars 2. Regardless, this is going to make things much more challenging as any unit can be turned. Wraiths, Marauders, Reavers, you name it, they can be infected. This added tension made things a lot more fun. The Archive has Vortis leading a team down into the Forerunner facility to find and reactivate the Sentinel defense system. As this mission is entirely infantry only, let's skip this one. On a side note, this mission is going to be brutal in the future lasso run, I can just tell. At last we reached the final mission in the game. The Flood has truly grown in strength, and so this is our one and only shot to take these abominations down. As we defeat the Proto Gravemind, let's analyze and reflect on the run as a whole. Halo Wars 2 vehicles only, similar to the infantry only challenges, were not completely possible. This was because certain missions forced the player to use non-vehicle units, or the other way around. Halo Wars 1 and 2 both had missions like this. Compared to the last round of challenges on these games, the skull choices proved to be more of a hindrance, which was fun as it made me work for each win. Legendary difficulty has been challenging, but no matter what difficulty, the AI can be manipulated the same way. That means if I exploit certain mechanics, I can make the battlefield slightly more in my favor. Player powers have been the saving grace of this run, especially the healing option. Activating this before a fight let me get the most out of my units. Vehicles compared to infantry only were similarly challenging, but I found infantry to be harder. Pick those challenges after this to see the differences. All in all, this was one fun but difficult playthrough to complete. It took nearly 29 hours to complete, mostly due to that one mission in the base game. I highly recommend you to try out these challenges for yourself. Let me know if you end up trying it. Expect to see a Watch Dogs video this upcoming week. It's been a long time coming and something that I've been excited to share. Afterwards, I got some various KOTOR challenges alongside pistol only runs. Besides that, I have been planning to do another Soulsborne marathon, maybe going through each game with the OG Claymore, seeing how its appearance and usage change with each title. Thank you for watching the video. Make sure to hit the like button, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. This greatly helps to support me in the channel, alongside pushing the video to others who may be interested. Try to do something kind for someone today, whether it's a small or large gesture. This is your boy Skilled Fawn, and I'm out.